Hey everybody, it's Lon.TV and we're checking out the new WD My Cloud EX2100 today. This is a network attached storage device in the My Cloud line. It's got many of the same features as some of their older My Cloud drives, but it's a lot faster. So that's really where it looks like they put their focus in, was trying to make these drives perform a little bit better than the ones they released a couple of years ago. What we're going to do in this video is focus on the differences between this EX2100 and some of the other My Clouds we've looked at in the past. If you're interested in how they operate, all the nitty-gritty about setting up users and everything else, I've got a lot of content, almost 2 hours worth on my channel about how to do different things with these drives, and this will perform largely the same because it has most of the same features, and we'll step through some of those in a few minutes when we get to the control panel portion of the review. But this is a dual drive unit. It's got the WD red drives on board, as you can see. The drives, though, are kind of spring-loaded, so there's the door has to hold it in place, which makes me a little bit nervous. So you can see the drive just kind of wants to pop out all the time, so you have to push the drive in and then use the door to kind of snap it into place and hold it there. So it does have a lot of tension on it, so they do, it really comes out at you when you open it up. I'm sure it's going to be fine. This is not something that you're always going to be doing with these devices, opening the doors and closing them frequently, but it is something just to bear in mind if you're concerned about those sorts of things. On the front of this new device is a USB port, which will allow you to dump the contents of your memory card or whatever else you plug in right onto the NAS drive, and you can configure how that works in the control panel, but the easiest thing would be to plug it in, push the button, and it'll dump the contents of whatever is on that particular memory device to the NAS drive, which can be pretty helpful in a pinch. On the back, you've got 2 gigabit Ethernet ports, and you can use them independently, or you can do something called link aggregation. Now, your switch, your network switch, is going to need to support that. A lot of the lesser expensive ones that we use in our homes, like my switches here, don't support that, but if your switch does, you can go in, in software, link these 2 ports together, and you go from having a 1 gigabit port to having essentially a 2 gigabit port. Your computer, though, also would have to support the link aggregation to get the full speed out of it. You also have a USB 3 port on here as well, so you could use that to back up things to the external drives. It's always good to back these up. Even with the redundancy of having 2 drives in a RAID 1 configuration, you always want to back this up and have something you can take off site, so you can set up automated backups to the USB port. I think you could use the front port also as an additional port for an external drive if you so choose. And remember that because this is a network attached storage device, you cannot plug this into your computer with USB. This is used strictly to plug drives into the NAS drive here. The fan isn't too bad. It scares you at first because it's really noisy for an extended period of time while the drive is booting up, but once it is booted up, it settles down and you really don't hear it all that much. I would imagine it would get noisy again if you're really pushing the drives in a very warm environment, but I think generally the fan is not going to be too audible throughout its usage. So what I'm going to do now is boot it up, and we're going to take a look at the control panel and then look at some benchmarks. So here we are at the control panel. They did make it look different. It's now got a white background with some different icons, but it is largely the same exact thing as their prior version. So you set up users exactly the same way, but they did do one nice thing on the share side here, is that the public folder now can be restricted from access to people that only have usernames and passwords. So before, of course, you could set up 100 different folders that were all restricted, but the public folder was always available to anyone who had access to your network. You can now restrict the public folder in here just by turning the public option to off. I just turned it back on, but you get the idea. And that's a really nice feature now, so that means that only people that have a username or password can get access to your drive. It's a simple thing, but it is a nice new feature that they've added to the mix here. Cloud access is the same app as before. So the WD My Cloud app that if you're already using, or you saw in one of my other videos, is the app you'll use to access this drive. It's the same exact procedure there. On backups, the only new option here is the camera backup option, and that is where you'll use that little port on the front here, and it can detect a camera when it's plugged in, and you can also decide where you want those files to get transferred to when you do plug them in. What's nice is that it'll create a new folder based on the day's date, but you can also change these options to make the folder the date the photos were taken, or something along those lines, even something custom if you wish to. But I think having it done by date is pretty handy there. So you could go ahead and grab your camera, plug it into the USB port here, push the button, and it'll dump everything into a folder that was dated with today's date. You can also set it to automatically do that, so you could just turn this option on, and then anytime it detects that camera, it'll just dump everything right out to your NAS drive, and you can get access to those files over your network, which is pretty handy there. But I tell you, beyond that, this is pretty much the same product as before, except in the area of performance. This is lightning fast, at least compared to the old one. So let's take a look and see what it does perform at. So I'm really satisfied with the speeds we're seeing out of this new network attached storage device. We're seeing speeds well over 100 megabytes per second here on the right side, and similar performance out of the read side also. And if you've seen some of my other WD My Cloud reviews, I've been very happy with how easy they are to use, but the performance wasn't always there for this kind of high bandwidth work. And now it's pretty much saturating my gigabit Ethernet connection. I've got a pretty cheap switch down below the table here, so I'm not expecting the full gigabit, but I'm really seeing what we should be seeing out of a device that's really pushing that network to where it should go. So I think they've done a nice job here, really focusing on getting their performance up on this new drive, which is definitely what they've done. So they put a higher performance processor on there so it can process the I/O a little bit faster. There's also more RAM also. So as we start seeing some more apps come out for these types of devices, it should be able to handle a bunch of things in the background. It has all the features of the other WD My Cloud drives as well. So if you're looking for one of these things and maybe contemplating the EX2 or some of the other WD NAS devices, I would take a look at the new series of new drives, including this EX2100, because this is finally delivering the performance that it should, and it's got that really nice interface along with it too, which I think is makes it a really good product. So that is the EX2100. I like it, and this is Lon.TV. Thanks for watching.